Hello and welcome to What the Tech from Boast AI, where we talk with some of the brilliant minds behind new and exciting tech initiatives to learn what it takes to tackle technological uncertainty and eventually change the world. Today I'm thrilled to welcome FrontFundr founder and CEO Peter Paul van Hoeken. At FrontFundr, Peter Paul and his team have built the leading equity crowdfunding platform in Canada, empowering everyday Canadians to invest in companies that they believe in, providing entrepreneurs with the essential funding to drive growth. To date, more than 40,000 users have joined the FrontFundr community to help businesses raise more than $200 million. But FrontFundr is just one of the many organizations that Peter Paul has been a part of that are helping drive innovation across the Canadian and global tech landscape. I'm excited to pick his brain on the state of funding, building a business in Canada, and the nuances of crowdfunding versus other financing channels in our chat. Now, without further ado, welcome to the show, Peter Paul.
Thanks, Paul. It's great to be here today with you.
Awesome. I'm so happy to
Thanks for the
have you.
warm introduction.
Oh, I
Yeah.
try to do my best. I know that I gave a little bit of your background, but I'd love to kick it off by throwing it to you. Tell us a little bit about Peter Paul, how you got into the tech space, what brought you to Canada, and why FrontFundr is doing all the great work that you guys are doing today.
Yeah, so thanks, Paul. My background is in actually in banking, finance and banking. So I worked for a bank back in Europe. I'm originally from the Netherlands, so I worked for a bank there for about 8, 9 years, both in the Netherlands and in the UK, and did all sorts of exciting things and had a good time, learned a lot and all that. But at some point it got sort of itchy, and I wanted to go down more the entrepreneurial path. So I was intrigued with the whole, exciting world of finance and investing. But again, I wanted to sort of more roll up the sleeves myself and yeah, go down onto entrepreneurial path. So that coincided with relocating to Canada back in 2010. We landed in Vancouver with my family and basically started a whole new book, I would say. And so I started working with small companies and sort of helping them on the consultancy base, helping them to get ready to go on stage to raise capital. And that was the time, Paul, that I experienced how, of course, challenging it is for companies, startups to raise capital. Secondly, how they are going to this relatively small group of typical or traditional investors, like, perhaps their own friends, family, angels, VCs. And then thirdly, the fact that no technology was basically used at all to connect companies with prospective investors. And at the same time, I was intrigued what I saw emerging in the UK, where investment crowdfunding or equity crowdfunding originated and actually started around 2010. And the fact that you basically leverage technology and open it up for the public, so basically enable startups to reach out to an entirely new pool of capital, i.e. the public, retail investors, that truly intrigued me. And I thought, hey, this is something that just makes a lot of sense. So for me, that was the reason to jump into this and really, figure out how to put the pieces of this puzzle, which was not that straightforward, but to start putting those pieces together and build FrontFundr.
I love that. And I think you hit on something that's super unique about Fundr in that it's almost as if it's like a B2C service in a realm that's traditionally B2B. So basically, businesses, everyday Canadians, like I said, can support businesses that they're really excited about. I think a lot of the conversations we have around funding are with people who go those traditional routes that you listed there. It's VC funding, so it'll be very much a B2B conversation. You're talking about how we can sync up, what is our simpatico between our teams, things like that. But this lets people on the ground get into the startup game, more or less. And folks who have that same itchiness that I think you were maybe feeling when you were in the EU and wanted to go down that entrepreneurial path, this is a way for them to start getting involved. And I think that is so cool. Before I go down some of the nuances of your experience in Europe versus Canada, and even Canada versus the US, just because I think that's always a really fun topic to dive in on, I'd love to know a little bit more about what sets FrontFundr apart from other crowdfunding systems. I know you did give a little bit of insight into that, but I'd love to learn a little bit more specifically. What is really unique and really differentiated about FrontFundr?
Sure. So, indeed the opportunity for companies to tap an entirely new pool of capital and basically redefine who that investor is, because the reality is that traditionally in Canada, but across the globe, 95, 99% plus of the population has traditionally been locked out from investing in startups simply because they didn't have access. It's very much about access, or they don't have the deep pockets, or the funds to indeed invest in startups that traditional investors do have. So with FrontFundr, first off, I think it's fair to say we've been the trailblazers in this space in Canada. When I started really diving deep into this around 2014, 13, 14, there was no crowdfunding yet. There was, as I mentioned, it started in the UK there. There was neither any much really going on in the UK, in the US for that matter. So first off, working with regulators and figuring out how to actually do this, which certainly in Canada is pretty challenging because we don't have a national regulator. We have, per province, we have a regulator. So we have 13 regulators basically across the country. So building with FrontFundr is really built on that, on creating trust. Ultimately, and it's definitely challenging in this industry, in the funding investment industry, is, we're taking people's money. Well, we don't take it personally, but we help them basically allocate it in investment opportunities. And so to do that properly, and certainly because these are typically earlier stage companies that obviously have a higher risk, people need to know what those, as best as possible, what those risks are. And we really build our company on creating a trust, transparency, and simplicity, and just tell prospective investors, tell our customer, client, investors, basically, as best as possible, inform best as possible, what the story is, and then it's up to them to inform themselves and to invest. So first off, it's creating that trust brand, and we've really been working hard over the years to establish that with FrontFundr. Secondly, you mentioned in your intro, we are Canada's leading platform, and we've done over 175 successful campaigns. So that trust brand and building a community and bringing exciting companies to the platform that fit on the platform. So for us, it's not like just listing anything that comes to us like a Craigslist. No, we really want to add value on both sides of the marketplace. We want to truly help companies to mobilize their community and raise capital, and at the same time, we want to offer the general public, Canadian public, the opportunity to invest in exciting opportunities. And so, really, I would really see FrontFundr as a curated marketplace where we list companies that we believe we can help, and if we can't, we will not list them because we won't be able to help them. And at the same time, offering exciting opportunities to investors.
That's fantastic. I like how you would nail down too. It's the trust, it's the transparency, but also it's the simplicity. Obviously, it's not a simple process that goes into vetting the customers that you're going to be working with and the people who are on this curated marketplace. But for users, it is a simple process to start getting involved, I think, compared to what, at least from my perch, I'm in marketing, I'm not an angel investor myself. It seems like it would be an impenetrable arena to get started in, or even just to get a taste of it. So I love that FrontFundr has nailed down kind of those three tenets, but there's obviously so much more into it. You had alluded to this a little bit too, but broad question, why Canada, I guess? What made the opportunity so unique in Canada, and why did you want to build FrontFundr here, and what has that been like, I guess?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, just to be very clear, I did not come to Canada with the idea like I'm gonna build a platform called FrontFundr and democratizing investments in the private markets. I really came to Canada because me and my wife were excited about moving to new. My wife's originally British, I'm Dutch originally, and go somewhere new. And Canada is a great country, great opportunities. And so that was for us the reason to basically literally jump across the pond, if you like, and then working, as I mentioned earlier, working with startups in Canada, particularly in Vancouver, where we landed, is when I recognized this opportunity, I thought, this is really exciting. This is also something very much needed, and perhaps particular in Canada, where if you look at the traditional funding source, we talked about angels and VCs. per annum, it's around 350 million, in that range, compared to tens of thousands of companies looking for capital. So addressing that two-sided market problem that's also existing in Canada, but particularly, I see an opportunity here to to help companies and entrepreneurship, innovation. That's really what we really want and need here in Canada, right? And so to attract those entrepreneurs and to help them get access to capital to build and grow their businesses, and in the meantime innovate, create jobs, all of that, that's really like that's an overall mission that I see for FrontFundr as well. And have I picked a country, Paul, where where it's a slam dunk to put this together? Probably the opposite. As I said, it's been certainly from a regulatory perspective challenging, and perhaps in general, these are risky investments. So you to get a Canadians excited about, hey, you can participate here, but do it while informing yourself and by making sort of rational investment decisions. And that's been quite definitely a task, but a very challenging but also very rewarding journey so far for me and for FrontFundr.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so much that I relate to from what you said. I think from a regulatory standpoint, it might not be an ideal scenario, what's going on in Canada, but just speaking about the ecosystem in Vancouver specifically too, it might be recency bias because so much of our team is literally right now participating in Vancouver Startup Week activities. We've been high-fiving tons of folks in the ecosystem, but I'm so impressed every day when I'm talking to new founders on this show or even just Boast clients, just how hungry everyone is in Canada. And it's not that we lack that here in the States, but I mean, I'm kind of an example of it. I'm based in Boston. I'm not actually in Canada right now. My team is Canadian, and I didn't even know. If anything, I thought it would be more challenging to drive innovation in Canada, but just the ecosystem is so supportive of each other. And I think specifically in Vancouver too, they all lift each other up. I just see that every day. We were at Innovate West a couple weeks back too, and it was just exciting. There's a hunger that I don't see on the ground. Maybe we're a little more jaded here in the States, but walking around Boston, like we're all business and you guys are all about supporting it. It's all, again, I think too, you had mentioned all of the early stage businesses that are being developed too. I think whether it's the funding programs on offer from the Canadian government, I got to give a shout out to Shred, or whether it's just, again, maybe a little bit of a chip on the shoulder of some Canadians versus their US peers, but the ecosystem wants to succeed. They want to drive innovation. And I'm just impressed with the amazing entrepreneurial spirit within that community, regardless of the regulation, regardless of the funding. I just think it's so cool. And we've seen that firsthand with the FrontFundr team too. We did a webinar about 2 weeks ago with Jaden Pereira, who's on your team.
Yeah.
I know that me and Trieste on your team have become great friends trying to map out some more co-marking activities, but just that kind of, I think, partnership with members of the ecosystem.
Yeah.
It speaks so many volumes about what a different kind of organization FrontFundr is versus ones that are just pushing a platform out there, for instance. You guys are really saddling up with the community. So I just think that's great and wanted to really emphasize that. And
Well,
now,
appreciate it.
oh, go ahead.
Yeah, and just to add there, because Paul, you're absolutely right about the startup ecosystem, and that's why we're actively, because we're basically we're adding an alternative route for startups to raise capital, and complementary to existing ways to raise capital, right? This is not substituting anything or traditional capital. It's not going to happen anytime soon, and it's not the purpose. The whole idea is like, hey, look, compared to that 350 million per year that I mentioned from early stage investors, from traditional investors, we basically, even if the general public would invest like 0.5% of their financial investable assets each year, will basically unlock a pool of about 1.5 billion Canadian dollars per year, and that's pretty conservative. So think about the potential of unlocking so much more capital for these companies to grow. And then your comment about the ecosystem. That's why we are very active in ecosystem, certainly know that we've proven we can execute and build our track record, with other players in the ecosystem, with accelerators, incubators, with other funds, and also, of course, the recent partnership with both we're really excited about. It's all the different ways of funding for companies, and to bring that together is yeah, that's truly helping the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, and I know in one of your earlier answers, you had mentioned puzzle building or putting together puzzles and how like that's a fun challenge, I think, for people who have an entrepreneurial spirit. I think funding a startup in Canada, it's almost like puzzles. You're not going to have one piece, like you had said, that's going to cover all of your funding. Crowdfunding is going to be one piece of a larger capital strategy, just like shred funding is going to be one piece of your larger capital strategy. But again, tap into those ecosystem partners because you need that diversified capital strategy to capture the growth that you want. If you're beholden to a single source, you're locked in, you're handcuffed to
Uh,
that source, and you will go wherever that takes you, which could be good, could be bad. But it's also, again, it's a benefit to ask not for help, but just for support across the community too. And I think that you're better off in the long run when you have that. It's almost a little bit of that R&D too. You're getting that proof point from potential customers in some cases. If they're willing to help fund your innovation to get your business off the ground, that's part of the research that you need to be doing to make a solution in the market. And
totally.
again, you gotta do some puzzle building to make a capital strategy that's bulletproof. No capital strategy is going to be bulletproof. Market conditions are always going to impact what you're able to do, but
Yeah.
fortifying yourself against that, looking into crowdfunding, looking into angels if you're fortunate enough to have them, leveraging government funding. It's all things you need to do, and it's all things that you can't do on your own either. So
Yeah.
you really need
Well,
to leverage those resources.
definitely. I would add to that, combining, let's say, non-dilutive funding like government funding, like SHRED, IRAP, and those sources, combined with private funding, it's essential. Like we have companies on our platform and investors, and if they learn it, or many of them actually expect, like, hey, what are you as a startup? How are you leveraging non-dilutive funding? Because what is better for private investors come through FrontFundr, invest in a company, and a company is already attracted,
Mhm.
additional funding. They see their investment dollars immediately leveraged, right? And vice versa. Like, obviously, from your perspective, at both, obviously your clients, they're looking for private funding in addition to tapping, government funding. So they really go hand in hand. And yeah, that's why it's so important that companies look at these different routes of funding.
Totally. And you actually hit the nail on the head when you mentioned IRAP and Shred and when these opportunities become available to you at different stages of your company's growth too. Like IRAP will be very, very valuable if you're applying for that funding while you're still building an MVP, for instance. Whereas if you're a heavy R&D company, Shred will become increasingly more valuable as you grow, and vice versa with any kind of private equity too. It's almost due diligence. Your VC or your private investors want to see that you're taking advantage of programs like Shred because it stretches their investments into you further. It shows that you're being savvy with the money that they're giving you. So again, you got to do it all and you got to use those partners in the ecosystem. And again, I just think it's so cool too that we're privileged to be as close to you guys are geographically in Vancouver, but again, just in terms of what we want to do with our product, what we want to do to help the larger community. So that is awesome. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a tough question, probably. No one likes picking their favorite child, but are there any amazing success stories out of FrontFundr that you maybe want to highlight for our audience today?
Yeah, absolutely. We obviously have had a number of success stories on the platform, but one that's really exciting to highlight, also because it's very recent, is a company called Blossom Social. And so they recently raised on FrontFundr. Blossom is basically a community in investing app, so really sharing information, and so it's really all driven through their app. And they build an amazing community of over 100,000 users. And they actually, and this is interesting, they, prior to raising FrontFundr, they also raised from VCs. So they recognize the opportunity, like, hey, we've got all these users, customers. What if we turn those customers also in investors in the app they're already using, right? So that's where we started the conversation with Blossom. So they raised on FrontFundr, opening it up to their own community and the FrontFundr community, which now over 40,000 users, as you mentioned earlier. And so with the Blossom campaign, was a great success. They hit multiple records. Not only did they basically in the first 24 hours raise over 500,000 for over 450 investors. They also had the shortest campaign ever on FrontFundr. They raised 1.3 3 million in just in 3 days. And so that was another record. And also good to mention here, over 80% of the investors in Blossom were retail investors. These are also younger investors wanted to invest smaller amount, and so it's a great example of opening it up really to the audience, and everybody was basically able to invest in the company. So yeah, so Blossom Social has been a really a great success. We're very excited about it, and it truly demonstrates the power of raising from the public.
That is so awesome. Blossom Social. Just want to say that again and make sure that anyone listening will look them up because that is an awesome success story. It actually had me thinking about a founder we had on the podcast about a month ago, Peter Montiza from MyArc. He took a very similar approach. He was actually, like I had mentioned earlier, talking to customers early to figure out what the solution was going to look like. And he eventually turned those customers into initial use cases, but investors too. His was about people who are helping with physical health. So like social influencers who are working, they're coming up with their own business and he provided a platform to help them with that. And now they all have equity in that platform and they're all benefiting from its growth. And I know that's not a one-to-one, but I love when folks engage with their community early because I think that's how you really unlock those record success funding rounds, for instance, because you have those people close at hand who actually have the interest in helping you get that. So
You,
that is
you,
so cool.
yeah, you actually touch on a great point, Paul. Is that the idea, democratizing investing, and that word is often used these days in the private markets, and but the whole idea that you empower the public to invest in companies that offer solutions for problems you know that really can change the world. Now people can literally become part of that. They can vote with their investment dollars because say, hey, I like this company is addressing a problem. I like to see this company succeed, and I can do that by actually supporting them by investing in them. And of course, I can then also share in the potential upside of this company as it creates success. I see FrontFundr as a purpose-driven company in terms of creating accessible market, connecting startups with the general public, but we also helping many of our companies are also purpose-driven companies, impact investing, sustainability companies that really want to change the world. Positive change is companies that typically do well on the platform because people simply want to see more of that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't want to go on another tangent, but I was even thinking about our friend Laura Forty at Radium. I saw them at Innovate West, and they very similarly too. It's almost akin to not what you're doing, but it's for real estate, and it's for people who maybe want to get invested, but they haven't had an easy entree into that field. Again, it was very interesting to me when I first learned about their product. They're a Boast customer as well, so I do have to give that shout out. But to your point, purpose driven and democratizing it and making it accessible and making it so that you can really latch onto something if you believe in it. I think that is so cool. Peter, Paul, I'd love to know what's on deck for the future at FrontFundr. Is there any stuff on the calendar we can look forward to? Any exciting new projects? What can we tell the listeners to watch out for?
Yeah, definitely. So, we are as mentioned, we're the leading platform in Canada. We're excited to take this industry also to the next level. And so just to give you an idea, to see sort of where the puck is going, actually looking abroad, is that, I mentioned to the UK where startup crowdfunding, where it started, about 40%, more than 40% of startups in the UK raised through FrontFundr-like platforms. So it's only went sort of mainstream in the UK. It's part of the funding mix, if you like. In the US, we've seen rapid growth of the investment crowdfunding space as well. And so I would say in Canada, the industry is still in its infancy, but it is happening. It is growing. It's also exciting to see how traditional investors start to recognize and actually embrace it. Like as I said, Blossom was also co-invested with a VC, right? So we want to really build out the industry in Canada, build out our curated marketplace in Canada. And yes, we have multiple projects on the roll. We are building out our solution for companies to come to us very earlier before they even started raising. We can facilitate with sort of gauging interest, coming soon kind of solutions, as well as post raise. So post raise, we can help companies make it easy to communicate with their customers and to basically build out a complete private market solution. And we're doing the same on the investor side. We've been very much so far focused on the actual transaction, but providing investors industry information, providing them post-raise information, features to enable them to, for example, auto invest in the investment opportunities. So we're really building out the solution now as we arrived at sort of the product market fit, which is continually moving, but really building towards a FrontFundr, a complete private market solution.
That is so cool. I love how there's so much value for every stakeholder involved here. Investors, the businesses themselves. That is so cool. Peter, Paul, I cannot thank you enough for hopping on the mic with us. This was an absolute pleasure. I'm so happy that you're in Bo's corner and that we're going to be able to continue working together in the future as well, because there is so much exciting stuff on the roadmap for you.
Thanks, Paul, for having me today, and also FrontFundr team is very excited to work together with both and collaborate in the exciting Canadian startup ecosystem. So thanks very much for having me.
Absolutely. Our founders will be in touch too. I'm very excited for it. Thanks again, Peter, Paul.